The Cuban Missile Crisis was one of the most significant events in history. For 13 days, from October 16 to October 28, 1962, the world stood on the brink of a nuclear showdown. So how did we get there? What took place during the crisis? What about the aftermath? We will answer all of these questions and more in this three-part video series. So let's look at how it began. It all began officially when a U.S. Air Force U-2 spy plane photographed Soviet short and medium-range ballistic missiles on the island of Cuba. But the root of this crisis goes back to World War II. As the war was nearing an end, it was clear that the United States and the Soviet Union would soon become rivals over a global competition of ideas and worldviews. Each side had the technical expertise of the Germans, particularly their rocket scientists who produced the deadly V-2 ballistic missiles. Each side raced to grab these German scientists to work on their own rocket program. The US-bound scientists, led by Werner von Braun, raced against their fellow German scientists now in the Soviet Union for supremacy in the area of rocketry. Along with the missile race, there was a nuclear race. The United States developed the first atomic bomb, and used two on Hiroshima and Nagasaki respectively to end the war with Japan. The Soviets entered the nuclear race in August 1949 with their first successful atomic bomb test. Now, thanks to the development of advanced missiles, these deadly bombs did not need to rely on an aircraft. Ballistic missiles could significantly reduce the time of flight, and conversely, reduce the time to react to an attack. Then, on October 4, 1957, the Soviet Union launched the world's first satellite, Sputnik. It was a shock to the United States, who was perceived to be more ahead in the area of rocket development. The space race, which would culminate with the United States landing on the moon, was in reality a war to showcase which country had the superior missiles. Eventually, the space race would become its own enterprise, but the early days of the space program was seen as a race to dominate the new frontier militarily. In 1958, Fidel Castro entered Havana, victorious against the dictatorship of Batista. Shortly after taking power, he made it clear that he was a communist and was willing to violently suppress dissent. In the 1960 election, Democratic nominee John F. Kennedy criticized the Republican nominee, Vice President Richard Nixon, for being a part of an administration that let communism gain a foothold in Cuba. He also criticized the Eisenhower administration of allowing a missile gap between the United States and the Soviet Union. In reality, the United States had the edge in ballistic missiles, but the early Soviet success in the space race led many to believe the Soviets were ahead. By summer 1962, the Soviets only had 20 missiles capable of hitting the continental United States. The other thing JFK was not aware of was that Eisenhower had a plan to oust Castro. However, given that the plans came together late in the administration, Ike decided to let the next administration, JFK's administration, make the decision. In April 1961, the Bay of Pigs operation commenced. The mission was a complete disaster. It is worth noting that the Kennedy team changed significant details to the original plan. Nonetheless, it was diplomatically damaging to the Kennedy administration. It also led to a grand bargain between the Soviets and the Cubans. Cuba was scared of another invasion, this time led by U.S. conventional forces. The Soviets, not having the ability to significantly hit the United States with its own Soviet-based missiles, saw an opportunity. The Soviets could put nuclear missiles in Cuba, which would in turn serve as a security guarantee for Cuba. The Soviets could also use the missiles to leverage a trade for Berlin, which was divided between Soviet East Berlin and Western-aligned West Berlin. Castro did have reservations at first because he did not want to seem like a Soviet puppet. But he had no choice. Also clouding the landscape were U.S. missiles in Turkey. The United States placed intermediate-range nuclear missiles in Turkey for the purpose of protecting its NATO allies. The Soviets had already introduced short and medium-range missiles in Soviet client states. Still, the Soviets saw this as an escalating threat. The Soviets thought that the missiles in Cuba would provide deterrence from the missiles in Turkey. So now that you have some background on what led to the crisis, we will discuss the actual crisis in our next video. Thanks for watching and see you next time.